Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. Boy, am I excited today. This is like a blast from the past moment for me when I learned that the woman I'm about to introduce you to has a book, a fabulous book out. I said, yes, I have to interview her. Let me tell you who she is. She is Shirley Neal, an acclaimed journalist, author, and Emmy Award-winning TV and film producer whose dynamic career spans decades and welcomes audiences into the rich tapestry of cultural storytelling. You know I love that. Known for her focus on pop culture, African identity, and Black history, Shirley made her solo writing debut with Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture. It is a visual tribute to often overlooked cultural moments, and we're going to get into it and you'll understand exactly what we mean by that. Her impactful work includes a Forbes Africa cover story on Oprah Winfrey, contributions to Ebony and Movie Maker magazines, and more than 100 productions for NBC, CBS, BET, and more. Shirley's award-winning documentary, In Tour, celebrates Rwanda's resilience through music and dance, further showcasing her passion for meaningful narratives. With 2 NAACP Image Award nominations and leadership roles like launching the Africa Channel, which is where we met, Shirley Neal's storytelling continues to inspire and elevate voices worldwide. We honor her unparalleled influence on media and the global cultural landscape. There could not be a more important time for us to be looking at media and the global cultural landscape. We're going to get into all of that as we talk about her new book. Please join me in welcoming Shirley Neal.
Hello, Harriette.
Shirley, I was so excited. I said, is that my Shirley? You're acting like she's yours. No.
I tried to tell him.
We go all the way back. So I just got to set it up. So I was running Ebony magazine, and this was in 2010. Well, I left in 2010. The last cover that I produced was of Prince. And I left and then reopened my business. And I got a call from Prince's manager who said, Prince wants to know what you're doing. And I'm like, sure he does. And he did. He was doing this tour, Welcome to America. It was first time doing a stateside tour for many years, I think like 7 years. And he wanted me to come and join the tour and interview all the opening acts with an eye on creating a magazine. And so I said, Prince wants me to tour with him. Yeah, I think I'll make that happen. And so fast forward, on this tour, when it got to LA, at the Forum, he wanted to have affordable seating for folks so that people in the community could come. And then he went back and forth with me and my friend Paula Madison, whom I'd introduced to him, who's the owner of the Africa Channel with her family, about televising it. And we talked about every possible way of televising it. He wanted to do the Oprah Winfrey Network. It hadn't even started yet. Harriet, can't you get me a meeting with Oprah? Sure. And I did get her executive producer, but then that didn't seem like a fit. And then Paula and I were trying to get him a Prince channel as NBC and Universal.
I didn't know all of this.
Yeah, as NBC and Universal were merging, we could have. He just decided we didn't want to do it. That vault that is so famous, Shirley, all of that music could have been on the Prince channel, but he was like, never mind. I just want this 21 nights for $25 on TV now. And that's when I met you. Because Paula said, oh, well, if you will do it at the Africa Channel, we can do it. And Shirley, did we make a miracle?
We did. It happened. It seemed like it happened overnight, and it ran for 21 nights.
It ran for 21 nights, and it was nominated for an NAACP Image Award. I mean, we made that thing so fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of sleepless nights.
It was called Prince Behind the Symbol. And it was really showing a window into what he created, what his vision was like. And I mean, I know you have, as I shared, you've produced many, many, many television productions and worked in film and everything. I'm curious about your experience of him. Because for me, and I've worked with many, many celebrities, he was different. He was a visionary in a very different way. What was your experience?
You know, it was when people always ask me, who do you admire most, or who did you want to see most at all the people, all of the actors, the producers, the directors, everyone in your career? Who did you admire the most and who did you respect the most? And I have to say it was Prince.
Wow.
That was number one, a treat for me.
Yeah.
And I'll always be grateful for Paula Madison and her family for allowing me that opportunity to meet him. He was a gentle soul
Hmm.
that I think a lot of people wouldn't have expected. I mean, I just appreciated this genius in him, but also on a personal level, he was just a nice guy. And he sincerely wanted families to afford this. It wasn't about making money. He really wanted people to come, entire families, and enjoy the experience. And I think that impressed me as much as his whole music library. I mean, we worked 21, pretty much the whole 21 nights with him. We were there. And I don't recall hearing the same track more than maybe twice. So that in itself is impressive. So there
Absolutely.
was a lot about him that was just totally impressive for me.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, he was a visionary, and he also really made the decision to celebrate people of color.
Yes.
And he didn't talk about it, he just did it. For example, that first night, I remember, well, I'm not sure it was the first night, but here's the point. Jimmy Fallon and all of the hosts of late night television were courting him because they wanted him to come on their show on the way to starting this 21 nights in LA. And so I feel like I saw Jimmy Fallon in New York and he was courting him. But what happened was, now Jimmy Fallon, he
That's
was
big
the
stuff.
man. He was the
Yeah.
stuff at that point. This is 2010. And Prince didn't choose him. He chose George Lopez. And I am here to tell you, Jimmy Fallon's face was on the floor. Like, are you George Lopez? What? Why? And we included that in the documentary.
Mhm.
And Prince explained why, because he's always been supportive. He's always been George Lopez. He's always been inclusive
Right.
and representative of the larger community of people, not just the world of white celebrities. And because Prince was iconic, like Prince, Michael Jackson, there are few,
Absolutely.
Whitney, Oprah, who so-called transcend race. But he was
Mhm.
like, I know who I am. I know where I come from. And I thought that was really powerful.
It really was. And that was just very sincere. I mean, he it showed, it exuded from him. I mean, you knew that it wasn't an act. And this was just a guy that was comfortable in his skin. And I don't care if what I do is not the norm. This is going to help people down the line, even with his whole music, owning the rights to his music. It's like he didn't care. He didn't mind breaking the mold if it was going to help people down the line. So very impressive. Yeah.
And the other thing, during the time that I worked with him and you as well, I remember being in, where I can't remember what's it called where the food is, but backstage where
Mhm.
everything.
I'm in the green room. Mhm.
That was the healthiest craft services I've ever
That's
experienced.
right.
It was
That's
really
right.
healthy. It's so sad the way he passed away, but you never know what all people do. But this man was the cleanest eater I have ever seen behind the scenes of any set ever.
Mhm,
And he
mhm.
offered that same food. He also offered other food for folks if they wanted.
But for everybody else.
But, he was a very healthy and conscious human being. And so I'm so glad we shared that moment of being able to
Yes.
to do what he wanted ultimately, because he was like, what are we doing, y'all?
And one other thing on that before you move on, he was a caring person, a naturally caring person. When he invited us to his home for a late night, one of those famous late night sets, I remember him coming around saying, can I get you anything? Do you need anything? Are you okay? And I'm thinking, you're Prince. You're being host. But
And
that's who he was.
great
And I don't know if a lot of people know that. So that's a great thing.
Well, and he was very generous and usually anonymously so. The thing is, he really was a spiritual being. He had a whole room in Paisley Park that was a library of spiritual books.
Okay.
And he took me into that library the first day that I came there when I was doing the Ebony shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, come here, I have to show you. And he had all of these rare books as well as other books from a variety of spiritual traditions, just examining faith and spirituality and how to live an honorable life, which, I mean, again, he was a great being, and thank God for all of the music that he created so that it lives on in all the ways.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I'm still a fan. I'll always be a fan.
Me too. So, Shirley, this book, Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture. So first, because it says style, I'm thinking this is going to be all about fashion, and fashion is a way in, but this book is deep. I mean, there is so much that you unpack for us to really understand the power of fashion and style as an imprint on who we are and how we think. Mm-hmm. Now, you've spent your whole career, one way or another, kind of delving into this space. What made you decide at this point to do this book?
Well, I'll start with the title. Mm-hmm. And I questioned if that was the right title. This started out to be a totally different book, but I wanted to keep the title Afrocentric Style. And if you notice, the subtitle on the cover is at the top, because I thought people might think it's all about fashion. And I wanted them to see right away that it really is more than that. It's really about our Blackness and identity in pop culture. It's exactly what the subtitle says. So I wanted to get into this because I love pop culture. I'm every element of it, whether it's music, entertainment, books, everything. And it was becoming so popular on social media that people were always looking at what was trending in pop culture. And they failed to go beyond just sharing an image. And, there's an interesting story that I don't know that you even realize from your days at Ebony. And this kind of puts it into context. I did a story for Ebony just before you left Ebony, and it was with Isaiah Washington. Mm-hmm. And Isaiah had evidently been trying to pitch to you about doing a story on him. And he said, I can't get any feedback. I don't know why they don't want to do this on me. And I pitched a story to one of your editors on Isaiah going to Sierra Leone to trace his roots. And I had traced my roots to Sierra Leone. Wow. And so I was at the Africa Channel and I said, let's go. He was going to become the first African-American to get dual citizenship just based solely on DNA confirmation. And so I said, we'll send the camera crew, we'll do a whole piece. And I had pitched it to Ebony, let me also write an article on it. And evidently, when you heard what the full story was, you said, let's do it. And he was like, wait a minute, I've been trying to pitch my story forever. And I've been writing to Harriette and nothing. But it was because the story, you found that the story was rich. At least this is what the feedback I had gotten back. And because it was more than just pop culture, if you will, it was more than just this actor. What's a story about this actor? It was really a story about Blackness and identity and finding your roots. And I know I appreciated that. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with this book. I didn't want to just follow who was the first to do this and print their picture and tell a little blurb about them. I wanted to do things like tell a story, look at something that's trending and focus on what we can learn from that. What is it about Blackness? Because there's so much Black influence in pop culture that we kind of ignore. And there's a lot of stories. Even when I was researching the book, I found stories in there about our Black history and identity that I didn't know. It was like a treasure hunt for me. So it really evolved into finding as many stories as I can that we talk about, that's trending on social media, that we've heard about, that we share, we post, and really kind of pull out things that we didn't know. And when I first pitched this book, I covered a lot of areas. It was fashion, it was beauty, it was hair, it was art, it was home design, it was a lot of things. And a publisher said, okay, narrow it down.
Narrow it
Come on,
down.
bring it home. And don't forget, you gotta get the rights to these pictures. And that
That's
could be
true.
expensive. So we narrowed it down to fashion, hair, and beauty for a lot of reasons. I think some of the stories are just very strong. I think
Absolutely.
it's very popular right now. And I think it's what people are talking about. And in some areas, particularly in hair and in creative expression, it really helps people. It helps a lot of our young people when they can hear some of these stories. So
I love that. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with Shirley Neal. She is the author of the new book, Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture. So in the beginning of the book, there are references, visual references, and then really rich storytelling around basically the Black Panther aesthetic and also what it meant, and Beyoncé. So I love that. I love that all of this, it comes together, and I want you to describe it, Shirley. But first, I just want to share. I agree, especially for young people, this book is important because it gives historical context. A lot of times people don't even know why the black leather jacket. Why do people think it's so hip to wear a black leather jacket and a beret? And
Mhm.
it's now stylish, and many people of all different backgrounds wear that. Beyoncé had the look with all black casting at the Super Bowl, and you describe in your book about the timing of that and what it meant, and the link directly to the Black Panthers. Can you describe that, please?
Yeah. At the time when Beyonce was performing at the Super Bowl, it was a volatile time for us, particularly for our Black men, because there were a lot of things were going on that the Black community knew about, but the world didn't know about until then, that time, because now there were cameras that were capturing the killing of unarmed Black men by police officers and whatnot. And at the time, Beyonce was starting to get a pretty bad rap for not standing up for her Blackness. And
She
so
was.
this was her attempt to say, number one, I'm sick and tired of this. And number two, I'm going to express it so that it gets the attention. I've got the biggest stage in the world. I'm here on Super Bowl. She had just released her album. And it was the first time she was really starting to show an appreciation for her Blackness to the world. Didn't mean that she didn't appreciate it, but the world hadn't seen it yet.
Right.
And one of the biggest things that she started to do in terms of making a mark is she wanted to dress in the Panther look. Everyone knew that she loved Michael Jackson. She had posted on her Instagram and her website many times that he was her idol. So what she did is she just kind of did a subtle thing, and she copied what he was wearing when he was on Super Bowl, which looked a lot like what we're seeing in her performance. And she decided to dress all of her girls, all of her dancers in a similar look, wear the black berets, and all of this was to draw attention to the Black Panthers. People thought, though, that she was just really paying tribute to Michael Jackson, but she was really making a subtle and yet overt statement. And it wasn't until she actually started posting afterwards and she started getting a lot of publicity about why is she doing this? And the image that you're seeing now is just part of an X that her dancers created that was also a tribute to Malcolm X. So she was showing some radical moves right now. And what I liked about it is it really kind of brought to your attention the Black Panthers, but
Mhm.
this book gave me an opportunity to dig deeper and really explain. She wasn't just doing it for style's sake. She wasn't doing it just to celebrate Michael Jackson. She wasn't just doing it to say, hey, I'm dressing like the Black Panthers, which a lot of people were starting to do at that point because they wanted to make a statement about what was happening to our Black men. But
Right.
nobody went further than that. No one actually said, this is why the Black Panthers were important at the time. So I wanted to take that opportunity to just kind of break it down and say, do you know the history? Do you know
Mm.
why this is important? Do you understand who the Black Panthers were and why they selected the dress that they did? So I did that with the Black Panthers, and I did that similarly with other stories. So
Yeah.
it's not just, okay, I saw this image, but I dug deeper.
Context. Context
Context.
is everything, and that's one of the things I appreciate so much about your book, Shirley, because for lots of reasons, including simply one's age. If
Mhm.
you don't have people in your life who are giving you the history and you aren't studying the history, then you can't know it. And so
Exactly.
sometimes it's simply younger people who haven't studied parts of our cultural history, don't have context, don't understand where something came from. And this book, through visuals and storytelling, I think provides a lot of context, and that is so important. I want to share with you that last week I interviewed Aunjanue Ellis,
Mhm.
and she just, well, I just saw a short that she made with Christine Swanson about Fannie Lou Hamer. It's called Fannie. It's a
Mhm. Mhm.
10-minute presentation that is incredibly riveting. And I got to talk to Aunjanue, who is just a powerhouse. And she keeps it REAL all the time.
Absolutely. I
So
love
she
her.
was talking about how she was protesting in her ways when she moved back to Mississippi, and the Confederate flag is like it's in the money, it's in everything. She
Mhm.
just said it's in everything, and she was not having it. And so you have this picture in your book about the flag. Take it down, Mississippi. This is the dress that she wore at one of what at the NAACP Image Awards.
Mhm. Mhm.
She took a stand as visually as she could to let people understand what she stood for. And one of the things that she said to me, Shirley, that I'd love to have your reaction to, it was about a role that she had had, and she was asked to do something that she just thought crossed the line. And
Mhm.
so she told the producers, "No, I'm not doing it. This character would never allow this to happen, and I'm not doing it." And I
Mhm.
thought this was so powerful just for all of the people that I come in contact with. It doesn't matter whether it is your job, whether it is your neighborhood, whatever. If someone asks you to do something that compromises your integrity, you do not have to go along with it. And that's what she
Right.
was talking about. You share stories within your book that kind of show that. Could you talk about your understanding of integrity in Black culture?
Ooh, that's a good one. And I think I have a lot of examples. I have
You too.
to think of something. Um, let's see. Well, first of all, I agree with Anjanou Ellis. A lot of one of the reasons I included her with that outfit is she wanted to make a statement, and she wanted others to come along, other people who were from Mississippi, to make the statement. Um, they didn't say no, but
Mhm.
they were very slow with coming to the table. And she was like, I don't have time for this. I want
Right.
to make a difference. I'm going to wear this. So I will always respect her for that. And I think that's where I am in a lot of things. I don't know how much of that comes with age and you decide, look, I don't want to play this anymore, or just pride. I guess one story that I can share is with the hair. And again, this book is hair, fashion, and beauty or creative expression. And it was about wearing my hair straight. And I know I take Black women, we take a lot of criticism if you don't wear your hair natural, or if you do wear your hair natural and you don't wear it. There's that whole
There's always
conversation.
something.
There's always something, and I cover that in the book. But I think one story was when I was with doing an interview, and I was with Hugh Masekela, and I
Mm.
talk about that and how he had this standing that I didn't realize while I was doing the interview, that he was just appalled at Black women who wore their hair straight. And he
Mm.
was appalled at Black women who wore weave. It was really more wearing weaves and wigs, but just the fact that it was straight. And I didn't know this when we did the interview with him. And after the interview, my cameraman says, can I take a picture with all of you? And it was myself and the host of the interview and him. And he kept staring at my hair. And my hair at the time, and I'll admit, I was wearing a weave at the time, a straight hair weave. And he kept looking at me, and I didn't know what it was all about. And he finally said, "Is that a weave?" Just totally came out and asked me. And I wouldn't answer. And I then found out that he had this, he was very vocal about it. He was speaking at a graduation and had decided he wouldn't take pictures with anyone that had a weave or straight hair or whatnot. And I didn't know this until later. And my point being that I would never give him an answer, but I posed in the picture with him. But because he wasn't sure, he made sure he put someone between us, the host between us, so he wasn't standing next to this woman who might have a weave. And so when it was over, my cameraman said, "I can't believe you didn't answer him. How could you do that? And why didn't you say something?" And I felt like I needed to, and I did afterwards. I defended that I can do what I want to do as long as it's my personal choice. I'm not doing it because I feel like I have no self-esteem. I'm not doing it for you or someone else. I'm doing this because, number one, it's easy maintenance for me. And number two, this is my personal preference. And I don't care who has a problem with it. I'm going to go the way I feel. And so I think I talk about that in the book. And it's kind of like a little bit like Aunjanue, where you just stand by what you believe. And that's kind of a common thread throughout. It doesn't have, people want to challenge your identity. And your identity is what you feel and your self-confidence and what you believe in. And so that's a common thread throughout this book, whether we're talking about hair or the fashion that you wear, or how you look, or your skin color. So
it's so interesting because we have limitless choices. This is what I remember telling my daughter when she was in elementary school. And at a certain point, there were no other Black kids in her class because the economy had tanked and a lot of people left and whatever. And then she wanted to wear her hair straight only because nobody else had curly hair except for her. And I said, you get to wear your hair every way. I can blow it out and it's straight. You can wear it natural and it's curly. It sometimes it looks long, sometimes it looks short. Your friends can't do that. You need to understand the range that is possible because you are blessed to have curly hair. And we can do anything. At the time, she didn't quite understand it. She does now. I think we all suffer from wanting to be like other people, especially when you're young. You don't want to be different. And I think that, thanks to racism, it's hard for us to win because, like you're saying, if you have it curly, somebody doesn't like it. If you have it straight, somebody doesn't like it. And it's so interesting, the Hugh Masekela piece, because Africans probably invented braiding. It is so, there's research that suggests that it
yes.
And so that's often braiding is using a lot. Theirs was using extra hair, some of it anyway. It's just, if only we stop judging each other.
Exactly. And and it's stories like that, and there's so many that I have in the book,
Mhm.
where our hair is challenged or our fashion is challenged or whatnot, or identity is challenged, that one of the things I loved about the book, particularly for young people, is it gives us an opportunity to have those conversations. And whether you're young or older, it's just a great conversation book.
Exactly. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole, and we are speaking with Shirley Neal, who has written a book, Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture. And it is full of all kinds of great stories. Shirley, you have many pictures. There are more than 100 pictures in this book. One of them is of Amanda Gorman, our poet laureate. I think probably the youngest poet laureate ever to be named, an African-American woman. And this is one of those rare times that Vogue magazine puts a Black woman on the cover in African clothing, which was just rare and
Stunning.
stunning, magnificent. Can you talk about why you chose to put this picture in the book and what this represents, what she represents, and this imagery as it relates to pop culture?
I love this image from the moment I first saw it, and I write that she just exudes this confidence
Mhm.
and this sense of Black identity, and it just came through the picture. I mean, it was so stunning to me. And I had written one of my chapters. I had featured Virgil Abloh, a
Yes.
designer who actually designed this outfit. And so I was already a fan of his. I honestly didn't know a lot about him until I started doing the research for this book. And the more I read about him, the more impressed I was. And when I found out that he designed this, and she just wore it so regally. And so she had really insisted on being able to wear something that showed her culture. And
Mhm.
so I thought, this is just perfect. And I think it speaks to, it wasn't the only outfit that she wore in the magazine, and they had others to choose from, but this one they said we want on the cover. And I just looking at it even now, I kind of get goose pimples. And it just really helps you appreciate, I mean, you look at the cloth, the fabric, how she wears it. It just, I think it's something that's very inspiring, and it for women. And it's just something that makes you feel proud to be African, of African descent.
I could not agree with you more. You know, when I started my career at Essence Magazine, and when I started in the lifestyle department, which was called Contemporary Living, and I had not been there 6 months to when I was in the Ivory Coast in West Africa. We
Okay.
did a whole big feature. We used to travel around the world documenting cultures of people of African descent. And so we go there. My interest from a very young age all the way through was fashion. So I ended up running the fashion department at Essence, but not at that point. But my understanding of fashion, much like most people, was European, was French, was Italian. That was what real fashion was, right? Shirley, we went to this tiny little village and saw little boys sitting on the ground weaving cloth with their feet. And this same cloth, it wasn't kente, because I learned that each African tribe has its own cloth, much like Scottish people have their
Mhm,
own tweed, right?
mhm.
And so I saw this fabric. Then we go to Abidjan to the marketplace. I see it on big rolls, and I see these gorgeous African women wrapped in the cloth wearing American jeans, right? So it's whole, like, confluence of cultures.
Mhm.
And it made me see something that Susan Taylor had told us all along. Style, our style, African style, Afrocentric style is so much more dynamic than what we have been taught style is. That we have
Mhm.
to open our eyes and see each other, see our culture, recognize how we put something together to
Mhm.
understand the inherent power in it. And that's one of the things that you worked at doing in pulling this book together, which I think is really like I said, it's important because it's educational.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's it. I wanted, and if you notice from the beginning of the book, I said, please don't just look at the
Yeah.
pictures. Read what the book is saying. speaking to, so that it really gives you an appreciation, not just for the image, but for the history of it, the Black history that's tied to it.
I totally agree. You talk, there's a section toward the back of the book where you're looking at beauty pageants and I like that it's not just Vanessa Williams because
Yes,
that's who normally
that's
everybody
what you expect. Yeah.
and she is a very important story. In fact, she's arguably the most well-known former Miss America that exists. Even as she so-called fell from shame. Sadly, look, what she did is nothing now.
That's right.
So nothing at all, but because of how our culture is. But I want you to talk about this notion of beauty and Black beauty and when the larger culture celebrates us and because you talk about it in the book and what that has meant and what it means today.
Mhm. A lot of the beauty, sadly, in our culture is surrounded is the it's the best way for me to say it. I think a lot of the when we speak about beauty, a lot of times we think about skin color.
Yeah.
And that's part of our identity, and that's part of our pride or our shame. And so, one of the things I do in the book is I spend a moment talking about um, just color. The
Mhm,
color I call it the shades and shapes of Blackness
mhm.
because I want to really explore that and make again particularly young people to see that beauty comes in all shades and I go from the very what we call blue black
Mhm.
to uh, light is almost white skin. And so one of the things I'm trying to do in here is really look at um, how we can have pride in any shape, any shade that we have of color. One of the stories that I print in there is about Carrie Weems, the artist, Carrie Mae Weems, and she did a piece, um, and it's called Colored People.
Mhm.
And she really looks at all shades of our Blackness. And she has this one image of a boy who is blue black. He's just this really dark skinned young man, and there's blue all around him. There's a blue tone over his face. There's a blue background. Everything is blue. And she asked the question, "What do you see when you look at this? Do you see
Mhm.
a blue boy? Do you see a boy, or do you see who is this? Who is this? What is the identity that you see?" And to me, that's very strong. It makes us think,
Yeah.
and I share a lot of stories like that throughout the book, using imagery to make us really think about what do you see when you look in the mirror? What do you see when you look at other people? And I use the pop culture to draw those questions out and then give you a history um, about it. I think, did I answer your question? I think I kind of went on another tangent.
You answered a question.
A
I'm
question.
fascinated by your answer. Let's say that.
Okay. I'm
So it
sorry.
works. It works. It works. And I think what people hear in just listening to you is a sense of the depth that you are seeking to reach through this book. Because one can call it a coffee table book, but as you point out in the very beginning of the book, it is truly a read. And it's a read and contemplate and discuss with your friends and family. There's so many interesting discussion points. You have a trailer that includes Jaden Smith holding his locks when he was at the Met Gala. What did that mean to you? And this whole section is about hair. In this, he appears in this section about hair, and we see everything from locks being cut off as he has two bald heads in this section. What were you looking to explain in this part of the book that takes a deep dive into, I guess, the natural hair is part where this is talking about?
Well, I wanted to show all the variety that we have. Number one, there's all the styles and a lot of these looks that we've been ashamed of or proud of. They have been pretty much used by other nationalities. When we're ashamed of it, we may be ashamed of our braids. We may be ashamed of our dreadlocks, but other cultures are also wearing the braids and the dreadlocks. So in a lot of ways, I'm trying to show that you can have a pride in what other people are borrowing from our
Yeah.
culture, have a pride in it. But look at the various ways we can design, comb our hair, we can grow our hair, we can display our hair, and just pretty much have a sense of pride for it, a sense of history for it, a sense of identity for it. I tried to cover some of everything because everyone has gone through one of these hairstyles or one of these trends at some point in their life, whether it's straight or curly or afroed or locked or whatever. And I just really wanted to have an appreciation for all of the looks and the pros and cons of wearing them.
Mm.
And the cons are few, to be quite honest. The cons are just when other people don't accept it, our look. But the pros are so rich and so great. And particularly when you understand the history of our hair. And I think that was just very important for me to just make sure I covered everything.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on what you just said, Shirley.
Okay.
Just in this sense, when you say the cons are few, I'm not sure if I agree with you on that. But like we have the Crown Act exists because people have been discriminated against so dramatically in the corporate setting when they choose to wear natural hair that there had to be an act, and it hasn't even been passed in most of the states. And I recently have been working with a man you may have heard of, George Johnson. He created Johnson Products Company, Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen. He's 97 years old and is coming out with his own book.
His memoir, yeah.
Amazing. But he was explaining how it was revolutionary for hair products to come out that allowed us to figure out how to straighten our hair, especially by 1970, when so many Black people and women were moving into the corporate workplace, moving outside of domestic work into more corporate professional work. And being able to change your hairstyle often meant you could get one of those jobs and you could rise up because it was easier to do your hair, but maybe A+, you look more like them. And yes, and probably Hugh Masekela's pushback is, well, we were forced to do this. At this stage, we get to do whatever we want. I think of my mother's era, and she didn't have hair that needed to be straightened, but her era, where if you wanted to move up, you often had to conform to a look that was more palatable to the white gaze. And I think that's real.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because it's not, you're right. I even cover a lot of cons.
Yeah.
I guess what I was meaning to say is that I mention the cons in the book, but I show how we've overcome them. So that's really more of what I was thinking in my head. But you're absolutely right. Sadly, there are enough negative stories about our hair. And one of the things that I mentioned, I even did a 2-page spread on it for the newscasters at during one of the NABJ conferences, the National Association of Black Journalists, where there had to be about 30 to 50 newscasters from all across the country who got pushback from being on the air for wearing their hair natural. So in this 2-page spread, I showed them in their natural hair because they had to fight to be able to wear their hair for their identity's sake on air. So yeah, there are quite a
Mhm.
few cons, but I try to use those. And even in one of my chapters, I almost called it something different, but it's Napoli Ever After. And I'm
Mm,
really trying to show that, okay, we had some setbacks, but now look at where we are.
yeah.
So there's always a happy ending, if you
Which
will.
I appreciate. Absolutely. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We're talking with Shirley Neal, who has a new book, Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture. Shirley, we just have a couple of more minutes left, but I want you to share if there is a story that you haven't told us yet, you think especially young people would benefit from, could chew on, and help motivate them to really understand our greatness. What might that be?
That I haven't included in the
That
book?
you haven't told us in this
Oh, that
conversation.
I haven't told us. Okay. Um, hmm, that's a good one. There's so many
Oh,
stories in here.
so
Um,
many.
in my mind, I have to think back to what I have in the book. Um, I think one is when I talk about color,
Mhm.
and our color. And I know that there's so many products out there, bleaching your skin and trying to look different. And I see a lot of young people that I'm in touch with and I'm around who still have self-esteem issues
Sure.
about color. They see someone that's very dark and they think they're ugly, or they're very dark and they think I'm ugly. And I think I come up with a lot of stories um, from Toni Morrison to uh, Zoe Saldana. We have stories about our color that show us that your whatever your shade of blackness is, it's all about pride, and it's about that's who you are, that's their identity. And I talk about how in Blackish, um, there's a story about just a father telling his daughter that it's okay that your skin isn't as light as someone else's. Be proud of that blackness. I talk about how the first time, and I make people think, when's the first time you realized that you were black? When
Mm,
your color was black. And I think I come up with a lot of stories like that from even when I first saw I Spy,
mm.
old TV show, and a young kid rubbed Bill Cosby's face because he wanted to see if it would come off. And I use examples like that just to kind of get the dialogue going. And then I use more modern day examples to show it's okay to have your darker skin tone or your lighter skin tone or even be albino. I kind of cover all shades and shapes
That's
of
so
blackness.
important. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that scene in I Spy. And for those who haven't read Frederick Douglass's autobiography, you got to read that, where there was a
Mhm.
white kid who asked him if he was going to wash his hands because his hands were dirty because they were brown. These stories live, but what I love about your book, Shirley, is that there are many celebratory stories. You give
Yes.
context with inspiration and celebration. So I want to remind folks, Shirley Neal's book is Afrocentric Style, a celebration of Blackness and identity in pop culture, just out this week. And it really is an incredible read. And I think, Shirley, what you have done so effectively is to get people to talk.
Talk.
If you read, then you're going to have to talk about it because there's a lot to unpack. So, congratulations. It's
Thank
wonderful
you.
to be with you again. I'm so proud of you. This is great.
Thank you so much. This has been my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank all of you for tuning in to Dream Leapers. I told you this was going to be a good one, and it is. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.